Hello, my name is Linda Starwolf, and I'm the president of Venus Rising University. And I'm so excited today to be able to speak about the university with my dear, dear friend and shamanic sister, Kelly. I also call her my Moonwolf, and I'll let her introduce herself to you.
Thank you, Starwolf. I'm Kelly Eden, Kelly Moonwolf, and I'm the admissions advisor for Venus Rising University and a student mentor for the students of Venus Rising University. I'm really happy to be here, Starwolf, to be able to talk with you about the exciting opportunities that Venus Rising University has that you founded and created.
Thank you, Kelly. And I really want us to just be able to be really rather informal today and to speak to the students who will be coming on, Kelly, and who may have questions about our unique university. And I would really say that Venus Rising is a very unique university. There are some universities out there that are similar in some ways, and that they honor students' lifelong learning and classes they've taken other places, and they allow credit for that. And some of those universities don't even have a curriculum themselves. They just put together people's transcripts for them and help them to acquire a degree based on their lifelong learning and studies and other college experience and that sort of thing. And then there's some universities that require that people take courses of certain kind, and they don't allow maybe even the other credits, but they can, you can enter into their university, and it can be a very interesting university, a very alternative university, and at the same time, it doesn't necessarily will take in the lifelong credit. So Venus Rising is unique in the way that it does that both ways, and there's other things that are unique about it, but I'd like to speak into that today specifically so that people can see what it is that makes Venus Rising University unique, what it is that really can appeal to what I would say is the advanced student, the soul perhaps that is looking not only for education, but also vocation, and looking for a vocation that's not only about money. We all need to make our way in the world and be able to take care of ourselves financially, but that in that vocation, that there is a sense of happiness and excitement about the degree, feeling and trusting that this degree is going to support, affirm, validate, and give that person a way to do their sacred purpose in the world. And, there's a lot of talk in the world now about doing our sacred purpose or discovering our sacred purpose. I've seen it in a lot of different religious schools, from Christian to Buddhist and spirituality, but even in mainstream universities, people are beginning to talk about, really doing what you love and not just doing it because your father was a physician or your mother was a dental hygienist or whatever, really, really being called to something. So the university, Venus Rising University, for me, first and foremost, is a calling to that individual and that student who says, I want a transformational experience, and maybe not just, boozing it up on Saturday night, I want a transformational experience with a university. I want something that's speaking not only to my mind or into my body, but also to my emotions and my spirit or my soul, or that bigger part of me, whatever you want to call it. Because in some ways, even though it's a shamanic university, it is, quote, non-denominational. So I want to say that too, that Venus Rising is a Shamanic Psychospiritual University, and what that's really bringing in is a lot that we can go into more and speaking about what that term means, Shamanic Psychospiritual. But that's the kind of students that I feel that will be drawn to watch this, and that could be any age, because as you know, Kelly, being in the role that you're in, that we have students in their 20s and we have students in their 70s. and all in between. I mean, right now we have a woman who's going to be getting her doctorate, you know, her master's and her doctorate, who's moving towards her 70s, who's been doing lifelong service and been a counselor already and all kinds of things. And then we have, you know, some students right now who are just in their early 20s. So this appeals to anyone who is at a soul level where they can receive these teachings and who feel called. So I'm going to pass the baton over to you to speak a little bit more about that, especially the role that you're in. And we'll come back and also talk about Venus Rising and when it was founded and some more things like that. But I'd like to just go right in and speak to those students who found their way here and they're wondering, you know, what the heck is this university? Why is it so unique?
Yeah. Well, you know, I was thinking as you were speaking, Starwolf, back in 2001 when I first did my very first shamanic breathwork with you, you were already talking about soul purpose. And, you know, years later, you and Brad, your beloved, established Venus Rising University as a way to formalize what it is that people are called to in their soul purpose. And I remember having a conversation with Brad. You know, he said, this is an initiation and it's a way to pass through where you've been, be honored for where you've been, and shoot you off onto the next octave of who you're becoming. And so the exciting thing for me and the reason why I'm involved with the university as the admissions advisor, what I do is work with people to find out, what is your story? Where have you been? What has your journey been up to this point? And how do we create a transcript for you based on that life experience that you can get credit for who you are and the work that you're doing in the world already? And then as a result, shoot you off into maybe a new direction, a new passion, a new soul purpose at another octave. It's very much an exploratory process. And when we go through people's life experience, I find just that part of filling out the application is an initiation in itself. People recognize how much work they've put in to their life up to this point, and to be honored for that feels really good to people. And, you know, when we talk about what constitutes credit, if somebody's already got their bachelor degree from a university, then that goes automatically into the transcript, and they now are able to pursue their master's degree right off the bat. So if that formal education is there, then we transfer that into the university. If that formal education is not there, we create the transcript based on life experience. And, you know, that can be getting sober. It can be, you know, courses that people have taken that were of personal interest, yoga and astrology, could be self-taught. Some of the credits that we give to people are based on the time that they've spent self-teaching and apprenticing themselves in a craft. So these are the ways that I feel like Venus Rising is very unique in honoring what people's hearts have called them to do on this path so far, and to support them in moving in the next direction that they're ready to head with their shamanic nature, you know. And you and I talk about, you know, you've said for years, shamanic, it's the transformation, the ability to transform and recreate over and over again. And this process of the university supports people to do that, gives them a container to do that. And of course, the university also includes participation in SHIP, which is the shamanic initiatory process that you can speak about too. So I love what I get to do with people, which is to support them to see all that they are already and what else they want to include on their path in terms of their own education and knowledge, but also the transformation that they want to undergo in their hearts in order to do their biggest work in the world, be of planetary service in their way, in their own way.
Thank you, Kelly. That was just so well said. It made me want to sign up. Just like, oh, I'll go back to school. But, I am a lifelong learner. And, I received my associate's degree in human services a long time ago at a community college. And that really worked well for me because it's all I could afford, to be honest with you, at the time. And then I went on to work in a mental health system that at the time was not, back in the day, didn't require a lot of degrees. It was just whoever would show up and was willing to work with people who had mental problems. And I figured I was a good person to do that, having worked through a lot of my own. I guess they figured that too. So, but somewhere in that process, they started wanting us to have degrees, and I was just a little bit shy of having my bachelor's degree. And I was a young mother, which is a job in and of itself. And I was working a full-time, 40, 45-hour a week job at the mental health center and doing a lot of other things. And I went back to a weekend college at St. Leo Catholic College in Florida, where I was living on the weekends for almost 2 years. I almost had a nervous breakdown doing it, but I did it because I was told that, even though I've been doing this one job for a while, that I now needed a degree. So I got my bachelor's degree and with a focus in human services and counseling, psychotherapy, psychology, and that sort of thing. And I also, during that time, underwent a series of studies to get my license as a drug and alcohol counselor and specialist, attended several specialist trainings to become an addiction specialist. And then I also became a licensed mental health worker. So I did all those kinds of things. I was always trying to learn, but not only during that time was I going to school and learning things. Of course, I was learning from the jobs that I was in, especially working with people. That's one of the best teachers is the people that we're working with. And but I also have always been a person that wanted to know about me. You're like, who is this person? And as I really, did some awakening, and I always say in my field research in the 60s as a hippie, and then as I became a young mother and lived my life and found my own sobriety 36 years ago, and, certainly my recovery was a huge educational process for me and still is 36 years later, what it means to be a sober individual in an addiction culture, that sort of thing. So I've had many different things that have taught me besides school. All of us have life and death and rebirth. That's what shamanism is about. Life, death, and rebirth. And the elements of life, of water, earth, fire, and air, and how we're balancing those energies within ourselves, not only within, but also without. And of course, the environmental movement started in the 1960s, and it's had its ups and downs, just like women's rights and gays' rights and, everybody's rights, actually, trees' rights, to the present, and we're kind of up against this again, like, what about, nature's rights, the earth's rights, those kinds of things. So the Shamanic University seems to me that it's really something that can take in all those things, like I just described my path, and more. In my 30s, actually, going into my early 40s, I decided that I was going to go back and get a master's degree. And I'd actually enrolled in the School of Social Work. But I had also discovered breath work, doing all kinds of breath work and all these other things. And I only had money, again, now having a teenage son who's getting ready to go to school and all these kinds of things, to either become a licensed clinical social worker or a breathwork facilitator. And you know what we chose? I chose a breathwork facilitator, but I can always remember my mother saying to me, who is going to pay you to breathe? And that degree is not going to mean anything, And I went back and went through an intensive training, and this was in my late 30s, to be a breathwork facilitator with another group of people. It was Psyche Institute at that time, and holotropic breathwork and integrated breathwork. But I also did something else. I enrolled in the Association for the Integration of the Whole Person with my mentor, Mel Sudd. And I also enrolled in Matthew Fox's University for Creation Spirituality out in Oakland. And Mel said, you can apply all of that towards his degree. He taught me how to do an individual university like this. And he actually was one of the founders of Universities Without Walls. He was one of the creators and founders of that. So he had his Association for the Integration of Whole Person in AIWP University. So as I was going through school with Matthew Fox, which I loved, but at the same time I launched my own shamanic breathwork and was doing all these things, I realized that I already knew pretty much what I was learning at the Creation Spirituality. And even though I would have loved to continue beyond a year, I knew that would have been more for me to just enjoy, and that I wanted to go ahead and I was ready, really ready to launch Venus Rising University, Venus Rising Association for Transformation, and Shamanic Breathwork in the world. And so I then enrolled in Mel's school, transferred everything over, and got my master's. I was just a little bit shy of a master's, and my doctorate through that university. And he had took, of course, all my courses and all the things I was teaching and doing. And when he added it all up, he said, Starwolf. I said, do I have enough for a master's and a doctorate? He said, Starwolf, you have 3 doctorates. He's, from all the self-study and self-work that you've done in your life and all your degrees and courses and colleges and things, you have well gone beyond what would be required even for 1 doctorate. I said, well, 1 will be enough. Thank you very much. I don't want to write 3, doctoral theses here. So I want to say that I really want to acknowledge Mel, and he passed on some years back, and his university didn't continue on without him. But he is a magnificent man, and he set the template, and he planted a seed. He planted a seed here, and he said, Starwolf, please do this for other people. And so when the time came where that seed started germinating inside of me, we had already birthed Venus Rising Association for Transformation. She's 22 years old now. We birthed and trademarked Shamanic Breathwork process, which is 22 as well. We had created an ordainment board that is recognized by the United States and also other countries. Any place anybody goes where they're recognized as a minister, we do an ordainment for people and take them through a good training to become a minister, where they have to do their own healing work right along with learning the skills. And then we also formed congregations of those people who wanted to go out and create their own spiritual centers. And it only seemed natural to me that after we had done all of that just like other spiritual programs, and one of them that I'm thinking of, really, quite frankly, living here in North Carolina, is Billy Graham, the famous Baptist minister who I always have had a lot of respect for. I was in a Baptist family as a child, and I always appreciated his compassion for other people. And his university, which is world famous, and people come here from all around the world to study his university, and his university is acknowledged, and it's a non-accredited university, but it's a university that comes through the state of North Carolina and through the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And Venus, I just want to say this for people, that Venus Rising is in that same genre, meaning we're not necessarily Baptist. Some of us are, we have actually a young man who's Baptist with his family. And so families attending our training that's coming up this week. But anyway, but we are you have to, in order to be a religious college, you have to have a spiritual tradition. So it took a little while to prove that to the powers that be, and I can understand that. But eventually they understood that shamanic is probably the oldest spiritual tradition on the planet, and that it encompasses not just indigenous people in Peru or indigenous people in North America or South America or around the world, but shamanism itself is found in every religion and in every culture, and that it's at the very heart and soul of spiritual and sometimes physical, mental, and emotional transformation. And so Venus Rising is, as far as I know, the first Shamanic Psychospiritual University. And I'll say this with tongue in cheek, that the reason I think that's true is because I made up the term Shamanic Psychospiritual. Psychospiritual has been a word that's been out there, or two words that's been out there, I believe since the 70s. And there are many teachers who started calling themselves transpersonal therapists, a psychospiritual therapist. My teacher, Jacqueline Small, 30 years ago, used the word psychospiritual a lot, and she made it very popular. But when the time came when they said, well, what is your university? My mouth opened and said, Shamanic Psychospiritual. So to me, it says that it's bringing in the psychological, it's bringing in the spiritual from all traditions, and it's bringing in the shamanic, which is about doing our own inner work and discovering who we are and following our own path. And we oftentimes have to go through some ego deaths, sometimes a lot, or sometimes repeatedly, as one person said, hit bottom, start to do your inner work, feel better, rebirth, hit bottom, repeat. Well, and it doesn't have to be that drastic, but, whether we're conscious and shamanically aware, shamanic psychospiritually aware or not, we're doing it anyway in life. So we can make it conscious and stay awake in the process. That's really what this is about. And guess what? Get college credits for it. This way, you don't have to drop out of school when you hit the crash and burn in school like I did in my when I was at the University of Kentucky and overdosed. You don't have to. You get credits for that. And I'm going to say, not. We don't want anybody to overdose. But if you've already overdosed in the past, we'll give you some credits for it, for what you found out, because you're still alive. And maybe you have some shamanic wisdom to teach others about what not to do, what not to do. So I just want to say that about the university. Our university was born after all these other things. It wasn't just a fly-by-night thing. There was, all these other things I had done and been through, and traditional ways of doing things and non-traditional ways of doing things, and then came back to seeing, because there was a time when I said, well, I don't even care about college or degrees anymore. And then people are like, well, I'm free now. I don't need to do that. And I came back full circle to saying, well, why not? Why not? Why shouldn't we be ministers? Why shouldn't we have degrees? Why shouldn't we have congregations? Everybody else does, Don't we want to affect mainstream? Wouldn't it be wonderful, just like yoga and meditation that's become mainstream, if shamanic psychospiritual consciousness became mainstream? Because if it did, it would help all of us be a lot kinder to ourselves and each other. It would also help us to be kinder to our planet, to our environment, to the animals. And wouldn't it be wonderful if all of us really felt like we were doing what we really wanted to do in our lives every day, and being able to sustain our lives in a very sustainable way? So that's kind of for me, the history of where it's come to. And, it's that very personal and emotional piece for me, and I'm very proud of that, where it has evolved to today. And I will say this, and then Kelly, I really want you to jump in, and anything I've left out, I really want you to bring in. Is that a kitty?
Yeah.
What's her name?
Her baby Stretch. She's cross-eyed.
Look at her. Look at those eyes. She's amazing. See, you can even have your cat. Your cat could give us a lot of information about you.
They all could. If they could talk, it would be a problem.
Or an asset with this university.
That's true.
So, the last thing I just want to say about the university before I pass this back over to you, Kelly, is that we have had people who already have degrees in law school, also from Ivy League schools such as Harvard and Stanford, who have doctorate degrees in there. We have medical doctor. We have doctors. We have past presidents of the American Board of Holistic Medicine. And we have people who are massage therapists, we have Reiki people, we have breathwork facilitators. I gave an honorary degree to my mentor, because she had everything. She didn't have a doctorate, but to my mentor, Jacqueline Small, who's in her late 80s now, who was my first breathwork teacher. I awarded her an honorary doctorate, and I also honored Grandmother Twyla Nitch of the Seneca Wolf Clan Nation, who brought those teachings back alive for thousands and thousands of people from all walks of life. Of course, that was after she had passed, but I brought that as an honorarium to her. So we have had many people, as I said, from all ages. I've named some of the people that that I maybe had roles out in our society that are often held in a little bit more esteem. But we've also had people who, are I don't want to say housewife, but are domestic engineer, but people who've dedicated themselves to their home and their children, and that sort of thing. And now they're looking for themselves, what they, how to honor all the things they've done, and in that arena and more, and things they've been doing for themselves since then, learning, like a lot of times coming through our programs here to do healing and transformation. So those individuals have, some of them, started families early and didn't finish up a bachelor's degree or something. So we have all range of people. This is a degree not just for a cultish group of people. It's for anyone who's looking to find soulful education. Back to you, Kelly.
Thank you. I'll take the talking stick. Thank you, Starwolf, for describing your path. I will say a little bit about what brought me here too. I mentioned that I first started breathwork in 2001, and at that time, I was graduating from naturopathic medical school. Yeah. And I had received my bachelor and master's degree from Colorado State University, sports medicine and wellness program management, respectively. So I have been on the path to different avenues of human potential for a long time. It started off in a physical realm and made its way to the emotional, spiritual realm, and who knows where it is now, bigger realms and smaller realms, all of it, both and. But I mentioned to you, I think it was last year, we were in Sedona, and we were speaking with somebody, and he had asked, what was it that brought me to breath work and brought me to shamanic breath work and supporting facilitation and all of that. And I said to him, I have a lot of knowledge, I have a lot of education and knowledge, but what shamanic breath work and pursuing my doctoral degree with Venus Rising University did for me was created a level of wisdom and heart opening that no amount of knowledge and traditional education could have done for me. And so, I appreciate all of my education. And there's a special place in my heart for my Doctorate of Ministry because of the personal transformation I had to go through in order to achieve that and to really understand myself better and understand what I was here to do at a soul level, an embodied soul better. And, I certainly, like you, have walked a path of trauma and addiction and recovery from those things. And it's born a compassion in my heart that I think serves me really well. It can make me a very sensitive person in the world, but it also serves me well to be doing what I do in the world now. And, I recently, I was in medical practice from 2002 on, and this last year, I recently decided to, instead of doing both naturopathic medicine and also shamanic psychospiritual counseling, I've streamlined a little bit, because what I've seen over and over again, certainly we need to support the physical body. But what I've seen for myself and what I've seen in the people that I work with is that soul purpose can be the greatest healer. And finding soul purpose and finding community and finding what it is that we really came here to do and be over and over again, because it changes, obviously. But, you know, at the different octaves, what is that? And, you know, this work and pursuing my degree is what's allowed me to continue to die and rebirth myself over and over and over again, and clear out the ego structures that weren't serving me. And that's what this program will support people to do, in addition to whatever knowledge they receive and skills that they receive. You know, I think that what I learned from you and Chip and being a facilitator and being a minister has served me far better in working with people than any of the more conventional knowledge that I've had, because it taught me how to be human. It taught me how to be a better human and more humane with myself and with other people, more patient. So, you know, I think that this opportunity for people is really about embracing all of who a person is and supporting that. You know, the light and the dark, as you say, it's all important. And it's about wholeness and finding our wholeness and supporting others to find their wholeness. So, you know, when you set up the university, it was established August 6th of 2010. And, you know, I think that when you established that, there was, it was brand new idea, you know, to do a Shamanic Psychospiritual University. And a number of people went through at that time. And then, you know, there was a little bit of a pause as some life circumstances happened, as things do. And we're just really excited to have a rebirthing of Venus Rising University with new energy and new people, and so many people now looking for ways to support their own shamanic transformation and to receive credit for that, so that they can then take their work out in the world with a credential that supports them to do that. So it's very exciting.
Yes.
It's very exciting.
It really is, Kelly. And I'd like for you to give us a little bit more information before we close, but I would also want to add in, you know, the piece that you said about like, it's kind of knowing where we've come from, what we've learned so far, and then having a sense of identifying where we are now in our journeys, and then looking to what's calling us as to what we may want to become. And sometimes with that voice is strong and we know what it is. It's like, oh, I know I really want to do, you know, I don't know why, it just keeps up in my mind right now about the environment, because I'm very concerned about the environment right now, you know, or with animals, you know, I feel that the same way about animals, and, you know, and certainly, you know, with the pain and suffering of people going through all kinds of things, but whatever it might be. And then sometimes it's just that, you know, I don't know. I'm in the I don't know. And when you go to most universities, you almost have to know. Like, you're enrolling to become this, you're getting your bachelor's degree in this, you're getting your master's in this, you're getting your doctorate in that. With this, we're saying, you know, what you think you're getting your degree in, what doesn't really matter, you know, because it will change. Hopefully, if you're not living dogmatically and you live a good, long, happy, healthy life, you know, you're going to change, and your degree is going to evolve and evolve and evolve long after you've gotten it, right? And so that is the shamanic way. So to identify where you've been and what you've learned and what courses you've taken, what studies you've had, what life experiences you've had, what you've learned being a mother, what you've learned being an addict, what you've learned being a businessman, whatever it might be in your life, and to say, but here I am now, you know, and here I am in the I don't know, or here I am feeling that I think I know, or here I am feeling really called to whatever, but I don't see any way to quite do that, really begins to help you flesh out where you are. In the very first initiation that you take with Venus rising is the spiral path. That on the spiral path, that you will step onto a path and that you'll travel the whole circuit. But rather than starting where you left off, right back at the same place, when you come back to that place, you've actually orbited an octave or two above it or below it, wherever it is that you're orbiting. And when you come to that place again, you actually realize you're stair-stepping, but it's not a linear path. Whereas schools, a lot of times, like chop, you do this, and you've done that, and this, and then you get your diploma. Now go operate in surgery, heart surgery. go cut people open. Well, really, that whole internship of what you go through and the experience is what teaches you to be able to do surgery, or what you were going through in that process. So it's the same way with this. We get to see where on the spiral path was I when I got this degree or this certificate or chose this career or this marriage or this life. Mm-hmm. And now that shifted some, or some of it has shifted, and I'm seeking another educational way of receiving acknowledgement for my path and my vocation, what's that look like now? Or what do I want it to look like? And to see that this is the model that we want you to not only complete when you get a piece of paper from us, and, we say, well done, but you take that model out knowing that you're going to keep getting, quote, degrees and initiations in consciousness, right? That's going to continue. That's part of life. My wolf dogs are out there howling in the background, so it's a shamanic video, in case you didn't know. We have black cats. Black and white wolf dogs outside howling, so that had to scare you off a little bit. But anyway, so the initiations of SHIP you spoke about, which is Shamanic Healing Initiatory Process, that core teaching, that part of our school actually was being taught in pieces until the year 2000. And in 2000, it was formalized into a program called SHIP, that takes you on, and acknowledging that it takes you on a journey through these initiations. And when we filed to become a university and they wanted to know what our core curriculum was, we said, whereas if you were going to a biblical college and you studied the Bible, you studied, sacred text, that you research and study your own journey through these initiations. And of course, there's written material on it. I've written several books, and on breath work, and SHIP is in those books, and speaking about, starting like I did today, teaching like from my more formal education to now, those kinds of things. And people can use those textbooks to really take themselves on a journey, in addition to other textbooks they choose to. But what we're really after is taking people through a process and a journey that will allow them to do what you talked about. Not only give them knowledge so that they have a working knowledge of the spiral path, your family of origin, and where you come from, who your ancestors are, the shadow, the parts of us that's repressed, things maybe that we don't like, but also things that we love but that we haven't allowed to come forward, that we don't even remember anymore that we like to do, like dance or sing or make music or play instruments or write or paint or go out and serve others in the world, or plant a garden, those kinds of things, And then the sacred purpose mystery, which is really beginning to, carve away from the stone, and say, oh, this is the emerging form now that I'm, knowing myself more fully, and taking away things that have been attached to me that aren't really mine. They belong to my family. They became mine. But, it's kind of like I have to take off this armoring and just see who this is underneath. Just like that caterpillar that's transforming and says, when I let go of some of the mush and the goo and come out, who am I now? I'm a creature that can fly and pollinate, bushes, and I couldn't do that before. So I'm a different being. And so it's not acknowledging where you've been. but it is, in fact, it's acknowledging everywhere you've been, right? All of it. But it really is also coming through these initiations and saying, and now with this sacred purpose, in addition to that, what were the spiritual teachers along the way? Who were my spiritual teachers? Who were my guides? Was it my dog or my cat? Your cat was walking around behind you just a minute ago. You know, my dogs and my cat are my gurus for sure. Was it a mentor I had along the way? Was it, you know, was it a higher power, like they say in AA, or in the 12-step program? Or was it a, traditional spiritual, entity or deity, or some would even say God or goddess or that sort of thing? What was it that took me through that? And then the final initiation in our series is the Imaginal Cells. And that's where we really begin to be able to do like Einstein said, which was that the imagination is more important than knowledge, and to realize that all knowledge and wisdom comes from imagination. It comes from the ability to see into the future, to be a time traveler, a shapeshifter, which is a shamanic function. And so that initiation really brings that in. So I don't need to say anything else about the initiations right now, but I wanted to say that because those are the core courses that we teach in addition to other things. And I know we need to close up here in just about 4 minutes, 3 or 4 minutes. But Kelly, if you could tell us a little bit about if someone was interested after hearing all this and said, yes, like a young woman just wrote me today and said, I'm so excited. I have my bachelor's degree and I just found you online and this is what I'm looking for. And when can I come and take these courses? And I want to do that. I get to work on myself. I get credit. And I'm so excited. And, I can finally say to my mother, yes, I'm really going to get finish my master's degree, And I said, congratulations, for finding us. So we want people to find us and, hear our testimonies like this and hear the heart and soul of what we're excited about and some of the lineage, which is, really beautiful lineage. There's so many teachers you've had, I've had, and the others that are part of our team and staff and faculty. But in addition to that, if someone today was watching this and they go, well, sign me up. What's the first step? What do I do? What would you say to them since you're that person that helps them coordinate that? How do they get started?
Yep. Thanks, Starwolf. So on the shamanicbreathwork.org website, there is a link to Venus Rising University. This video will probably be on that link at some point, so you may have already found yourself there. There is an online general application that you can fill out and gives us just real basic information about yourself. And then I usually receive that, or our provost, Ruby Falconer, might receive that and send it on to me. And I will be the initial contact person for anyone who submits a general application like that. And from there, we decide, based on what is in the general application, what your previous degrees are, or if you don't have any degrees, what kind of life experience you've had, or what your interests are. And then I'll have a conversation with people, and we'll talk about how to create a life experience application. That's the secondary application. And we'll go through what your life has been and how to receive credit for that. And we calculate those things based on the University of North Carolina of Asheville, which is who charters our school, which is a religious nonprofit university.
Actually, it's just a
religiously exempt. So, sorry, say again, Stark.
Chapel Hill.
Is it? I thought it was Asheville. Chapel Hill.
It's Chapel Hill. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there is a university in Asheville, but the one that we're based out of is the main university actually, and which is they're the one that determines it for the state who can be a university. It's in Chapel Hill.
Great.
That's where the university is.
Thank you. I don't know my
North Carolina university.
I don't know my North Carolina geography all that well. I'm in Colorado, so thank you for that correction. And so based on that charter, we have submitted to them what our degrees are, and that constitutes a Bachelor of Sacred Elemental Studies, a master's degree of Shamanic Intuitional Practices, And then there are 2 doctorate tracks, neither of which is a PhD. I like to make that clear to people. A PhD is different from a doctorate, and a PhD requires a research base. So we have to make that real clear. These are Doctorate of Ministry and a Doctorate of Shamanic Psychospiritual Studies. So a person can choose based on what they feel like their vocation is and what best serves them. The bachelor degree requires 120 credits. Master degree requires 60 credits. And a doctorate doesn't require credits, but does require a doctoral dissertation. The master degree also requires a master's thesis to be completed. So within all of that, I will talk to somebody about what their previous path has been and what they qualify for. We'll get the application done. You submit an $80 application fee to Venus Rising University. That usually goes through Ruby Falconer, and she's the provost. And then once that application is completed, our committee, you and Ruby and myself and Nicholas Wolf, will come together and review the application, and then a letter comes to the prospective student from Ruby Falconer, the provost, inviting somebody to join the program, join the university. And at that point, you are either assigned an advisor, or if you know the staff and have already created a relationship with somebody on the committee, that person might be able to be your advisor, depending on the circumstance. So we kind of co-create that advisor relationship with you, with the person. And part of your tuition is advisor mentoring that will help you to create your master's or doctoral project, or get you through the curriculum for a bachelor degree. So we have ways of calculating all the credits, and that's what I do with people on an individual basis. And I'm happy to talk with people about how we figure out those credits. The tuition is $100 per credit hour. So what that means is a bachelor degree is $12,000, a master degree is $6,000, and a doctorate is $6,000. So, you know, when we look around, there are programs out there that you can have the curriculum set out for you, and it costs $300 per credit hour. What we like to do is give people the opportunity to choose their own curriculum and only charge them $100 per credit hour, so that that other aspect of the money can go towards paying for the classes that they want to pursue. And those classes can be part of what Venus Rising is offering at the mothership, at the North Carolina mothership, or it can be at different congregations around the country. Right. And so there are courses that congregation leaders all across the country, and actually in the world at this point, are offering their own curricula for programs that they've put together that are incorporating shamanic breath work, or have other components of healing and wholeness involved with it. And those courses can count for Venus Rising credit as well. So we will work with a student to determine what their best path is, what their interest is, and what courses will get them where they want to be in terms of their
sign me up.
degree. Yeah. So I am the person who answers all those questions for people initially, and I'm happy to do phone conversations with people. I usually send out an email that has that general information so that people have a step-by-step process, but I'm always happy to walk people through it. And so it's an exciting thing, and I enjoy what I get to do, and I know you enjoy what you get to do, Starwolf. And I really do believe that it is the future of education, to be able to nurture and foster people's innate talents, as well as what they're cultivating within themselves. And I think that's why Venus Rising University is a leading edge university, and is really, I think, the future of education, because I think we're going to find that that's needed. with the creativity of people coming in now, who are on this planet and who are innovators and creators and big thinkers and big heart people. So I look forward to talking to anybody who's interested.
And so does your cat. She's back there again.
Yes. Brad used to call this one my lion.
Your lion. You know, Kelly, as we close today, I was imagining being someone who is watching this and, you know, myself 20-something or 30-something years ago and getting so excited and thinking about how I could, you know, do all these actually online courses, you know, and doing all kinds of things that I could be doing, you know, going in person, all the things I've already done, and then enrolling and knowing that I was going to get to at some point